And I want to welcome everybody to Bake with Sharon. We have the lovely, fabulous Sharon here ready to bake with us. So hopefully your hands are washed. I think you had a minute to do that. And welcome, and I'm gonna throw it on to Sharon.
Awesome. Well, welcome everybody. I am so excited to be baking with you guys again today. This has been so much fun for me. I think I'm enjoying it maybe even more than you. So I wanted to tell you that today we are baking something that I hope I am pronouncing correctly. I found this recipe. I'm always looking for new recipes, and I really wanted to intentionally find a recipe that was gluten-free. I'm trying to expand my baking options so that everybody who has any kind of sensitivity or an allergy can still participate. And I'm very sensitive to that because I can't have dairy. So this one is not for me, and I haven't tasted it, but I've given it to a lot of people who said it's delicious. And it's called a chocolate laddu, which is actually an Indian recipe. It's given often at, I think, some holidays that they have, and there are many versions of it. And I also just want you to know that I intentionally choose recipes that if we have to sometimes substitute an ingredient, we can do that. So if you have a nut allergy, you could substitute. I have some like sprinkles here. By the way, these are from Flapjacks. I think they last forever. I'm using coconut, which actually I think is technically, if you have a nut allergy, it could be, but you could do chocolate chips, pretzels, even potato chips I thought would be really fun. So we're gonna stick with the original recipe today. And before we get started, you have a few ingredients here. You don't have to bake anything, which is awesome. We're just gonna be using the pot, and I'm gonna show you how you can do an alternate aspect of it with the coconut, and so we have a pan. So what we're gonna do to get started is to prepare our tools. So, and those are our, the different things we have. So I had suggested you get some kind of baking dish. This is kind of like a lasagna pan. This is where we're going to put the laddu as in the process. So in order to prepare this, you want to take just a little butter to grease it. And what I didn't mention in my ingredients, I do it sometimes with my hands, which is why I said use your, make sure your hands are clean. But I just folded some paper towel, and I'm just gonna take the butter on my paper towel, and I'm going to wipe all in my lasagna pan, which you can do the same. And this will just keep it non-sticking, and also a little extra butter also makes it quite delicious. If you don't use all the pat of butter that you used for that, it's okay. You can just, put it back, and I'll just move that to the side. So now we're just going to move this to the side. And let me see here. The next thing I did to prepare, once we roll the laddus out, I just put some parchment on a baking tray. So you can kind of have that ready on the side as well. So now the other thing I'd like to prep is we're going to take one of the small bowls I told you to have prepared, and we're going to chop our almonds. So I keep my almonds and all of my nuts actually in the fridge. It preserves them and keeps them lasting longer. I've read in a lot of cooking blogs and cookbooks and lots of places you should refrigerate or freeze your nuts for expanding the life of them. And I like to keep mine in jars so I don't have bags everywhere. So I'm going to, let me see, how much do we need here? We need 5 tablespoons. So, I'm not always the best measurer, so I had to look. So I'm gonna first, I have my bowl. I'm gonna first scoop out my 5 tablespoons. I like to overflow a little bit sometimes when it's something like this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I know I have enough of my almonds. Now I already had some slivered, but I'm going to chop them up a little bit more. So I have my cutting board handy. I'm going to carefully pour my nuts out on my cutting board. Remember we talked about our knife tip down, and I'm just going to gently chop Because these are bite-sized, it's almost like a candy. You want to kind of chop it up. You know, I like to kind of go clockwise and then counterclockwise. So I work my way through my pile. Sometimes, let me move this bowl so you can see. I'll use the tip of my knife to kind of push everything back and keep it in my general area. Of course, today I chose a cutting board that's probably too small for the amount of almonds that I chose to put on there. I should have been smart and done it in parts. So we're just going to chop these up, and we're going to leave these to the side. So you can chop them as much or little as you want. If you don't want to have them too big, you can chop them, keep chopping until they're fine. And if you don't mind them chunky and big, you can just leave them bigger. That's, again, the beauty about add-ins like this. I'm mixing, they're flying everywhere. Okay, so now that I've got mine chopped a pretty good amount, I'm going to take my nuts and very carefully just put them back in the bowl for later. This is one of those recipes that it's good to have all of your prep done ahead. Now I'm going to add to the prep. I put it in the recipe. It is not necessary, so you don't have to do it if you don't want to. But I'm going to pull out my handy dandy hot plate, and I'm going to put it a pan, and I'm going to toast my coconut, some of it, because I like toasted coconut. But you do not have to toast your coconut if you don't want to. In this recipe, it calls for 2 tablespoons. So I can take, oh, that was not the right bowl. I can pre-measure out. I also keep my coconut in a jar. I'm one of those people that saves every jar that comes in my house. If I have, this was from tomato sauce, I saved the jar. This is another jar. This might have been salsa or something. I always save my jars. So I've got my coconut. I'm gonna do heaping teaspoons here. 1, 2 in my bowl. And I'm just going to put it in my pan that is warm. There's nothing in it, no oil, nothing else. I'm just sprinkling. And the key to toasting coconut is you can do it either in a pan or in an oven or even a toaster oven. All you have to do is keep an eye on it because it will burn and you want to be careful. So what I like to do is I like to use my muscular arms. Remember we talked about all that muscle last week with the muffins. I've got to build up from all this baking. And make sure I have an even distribution in my pan. And we'll just kind of let that sit. I'm going to shake it every so often. So right now we have prepped a lot of our ingredients. And I just realized I think I might want to have a little bit of a bigger bowl than this. So I'm going to have my handy assistant go get it for me because I think I misjudged. So we're going to keep this coconut toasting. If you didn't want to toast yours, don't worry. I'm not going to toast it for all that long because I don't want to spend too much time. Thank you. And now I got my big bowl. We are ready to dig in. This is going to be so exciting. So we just need, at this point, let me move along. We're going to need our, well, I'm going to just take this off at this point, and I'm going to put this to the side. And if you are ready, we're going to take your pot, and we're going to get that on your stove. And I have mine on medium heat. You don't want it too high, but you don't want it super low either. So in this, I'm just letting this kind of preheat a little bit. The way you know that your pan is kind of ready to go, and you have to be careful here. Just gently put your hands, do not touch the metal, but just put it above it. If you start to feel a little warmth and heat come up, it's probably ready for you to start to use. It's just like everything else in life. You need to give things time to kind of be ready and warm up and be ready to go. So I've got my 2 tablespoons of butter, and I'm gonna pour that, you can hear it sizzling, in my pan. And I'm going to open my sweetened condensed milk. So this is your time. Careful, it's messy. Sweetened condensed milk is really just milk and sugar. I'm not exactly sure what the process is, but they do something and it comes out like this. I'm gonna pour it in. Look at how thick that is. You can hear that going. Now, I told you to have a spatula ready. If your spatula fits in your can, just try and get every last bit of that sweetened condensed milk out. Now, the key here is to really pay attention and stay on top of your pot so it doesn't get burned. So I am stirring. When you're stirring in your pot, you also want to take your spatula and just around the edges, kind of scoop around the edges and make sure that the butter and the sweetened condensed milk gets incorporated together. And we're going to cook this. It says low heat, so I didn't mean too high, but you can do it a little bit higher because
Excuse me.
we want. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt, but what temperature should it be on?
On the stove, do you have a gas or an electric?
Electric.
So I would do it more on, I'd say, the 3 or the 4.
I don't get it.
I'm sorry?
I don't get it.
You didn't get, so just put it on a lower temperature.
Okay.
It's on the stove top, right? You have it in a pot on the stove.
And what? Okay, what utensil are you using?
I have my spatula
Okay.
and my pot.
Elias, do you want to show me while Sharon keeps going? Do you want to show me? Maybe I can help you in the chat. Would that be helpful?
That would be good. I am hearing a little kickback. I'm not sure if that's Elias. I'm not. Let me see if we can.
Sharon, I have a question.
I got it, Sharon.
Okay.
Sharon,
Yes.
So my cook stove is not working. And
Okay.
For the butter or whatever stuff, how long do I have to cook it for? You know, for the microwave?
Oh, I would just do it in 30 maybe 30-second increments, just because I don't want it to boil. So you'll just, I really.
So apparently.
Yeah, just do it in short increments. Like I said, like possibly 30 seconds to a minute, and keep doing it. The key here is just every time you take it out, stir it.
Okay, thank you.
So you're welcome. All right, so we're doing this, it's about 10 minutes. You want to keep this until it starts to thicken. And so as I said, we talked about this before, I think once, but you'll start to see little bubbles on the outside rim of your pan. And that's when you know it's starting to thicken up. And as it solidifies in there and gets thicker, it's going to start to get a little more solid and move away a little bit from the edge of the pan. That's how you know it's starting to be ready. The thing we want to do here is really thicken this up, because it's going to be almost like a fudgy, truffly kind of candy, and it needs to thicken up in order to do that. So as we're stirring, the reason why you want to keep stirring is you don't want it to boil and you don't want it to burn. And I have to tell you that I've made this now a couple of times actually. And one time I just turned away for a minute and it started to curdle and get some pieces in there. So you really have to stay on it. So just keep stirring until it's really starting to thicken up. I'm not sure about yours, it's hard to see, but mine is starting to come together. I just want to make another little shout out that if you are not on mute, if you could please mute yourself so that it's hard to it gets a little distracting when people are not on mute. It's hard to then hear what's going on. So if you are, thank you so much. That's awesome. Okay, So now what we are going to do is we are going to mix in the cocoa powder. And I see a little spelling mistake here in my recipe. It says remove any umps instead of lumps. So clearly I need to be more careful. So let's see here. We are going to need 1 cup of cocoa powder. I guess if we were prepping, it would have been smart had we measured that out too, but that's okay. I would turn your heat down a little bit while we go to do that, just so nothing burns. So just lower your heat ever so slightly while we go to measure our 1 cup of cocoa powder. There are lots of versions of cocoa powder. The one I have is, it's unsweetened. They usually come unsweetened. Hershey's makes one. And so I'm going to just over the pot, just in case there's some spillage, we just kind of sprinkle this in, get this cup nice and full. You can always shake it like we talked about to even it out. And then while you're stirring, sprinkle it in. I'm not left-handed, it's hard to do this with my left hand. But now that you're getting your cocoa powder in, we really want to do the same thing we talked about with scraping those edges. Kind of like we were folding last week when we made our muffins and we were using the edge of the bowl. We're just going to very carefully use our spatula, scrape around the edges, and really get all this incorporated in. It's really going to become chocolatey at this point, which if you like chocolate is awesome. Of course, I love chocolate, so there's almost no chocolate that I don't like. I like all versions. So now it should really be coming together. I'm going to show you mine in a second. I just want to make sure it's nice and incorporated. And I don't know if you can see in there, but it's really coming together. And now it's going to be a little harder to stir. In fact, I'm going to take it off the heat and turn the stove off. Make sure you turn the stove off before you move on to your next bit, so we don't have any kind of fire situation. So I'm going to take my now very stuck together mixture, and I'm going to pour in about, is it half of the almonds? I think, yeah, about half of the almonds. We could have used cashews, was in the recipe. You could use any nut. You know, I like to eyeball, so I'm just going to sprinkle and I'm going to pour. And then I'm going to very carefully mix it together. Sometimes when I do this, I scrape it down just to push it all together. And then here's the part where we use that lasagna pan that we prepared. By the way, you could also, if you really love chocolate, add chocolate chips here. You could just make it a super chocolatey. It's really, as it comes together, it almost gets a little shine to it. So let me get my lasagna pan, which we have already discussed is buttered up and ready. And very carefully, with one hand, you're going to hold the pan, use your spatula, and scrape your mixture, look at that, whoop, into the lasagna pan. Put that to the side, and here is the next part. You want to take your blob and use the back of your spatula and just kind of spread it out as best you can. It's a little sticky. You can use a motion where you kind of gently pull it away after you push it down so that it starts to flatten out. So I kind of...
Excuse me, Sharon.
Yes.
I think Heather has a question. She was wondering, can we use chocolate chips in place of the coconut?
100%, yes. You can...
Excuse me, I can't hear you.
Yes, you can use chocolate chips if you want, if you don't like coconut. You can actually substitute almost anything. The only necessary ingredients in this recipe that make it really key is the sweetened condensed milk the butter and the chocolate, the cocoa powder. After that, the mix-ins, you can choose whatever you want. And if you want it crunchy, you can add more in the mixture. And if you want it more on the outside where it's kind of spread around the balls that we're going to make, you can then just put it on the outside and put it in your bowls. So I'm gonna show you guys. I have it now spread out in my pan. Now, this is the part that is important to remember. We're using our hands to make sure they're clean. Do you want to take that? We are going to let it cool for just a couple of minutes because it's pretty hot right now. And I'm going to take my coconut that a little bit toasted, but to be honest, it's really not that toasted. Whoop. I'm pouring that in my bowl and making a big mess as usual. And I'm getting my area prepped. So I've got the things I'm going to be rolling my laddoos in here. And I've got my my cooling mixture here. And so now what we're going to do, and this is the really cool part, one more thing to prep. Move, I forgot to tell you this one last thing. You're all probably in a kitchen where you have access to your sink, but because I'm doing this in my dining room, I have a little bowl of water prepped. The key to rolling these laddoos is you need your hands to be moist. I prepped myself today with a dish towel because I'm going to be messy. And I have my water ready so that I can keep my hands moistened. Right near me, I have my pan. So this is going to be the order of things. We will take a little piece of our ladoo. We will roll it in our hands. We will put it in either the nuts or the coconut, or if you're doing chips or pretzels or chocolate chips, whatever you choose. And we're going to roll them and leave them on the cookie sheet so that it can kind of harden up a little bit and spend some time there. And then I'm going to show you a trick afterwards. So here we go. I'm going to just scoop up. Now I buttered this, so it should be pretty easy to scoop. Now I just scooped up a little piece. I would say it's a little smaller than a golf ball. And I'm just gently rolling it in my hand. So I'm rolling it into, it does not have to be perfect. Here's my ball. And I'm gonna start off by putting it, and you wanna press down a little bit into, I'm putting it in my nuts first. Ooh, it's like not even sticking that much. I guess my mixture was quite so much perfect that it didn't even get that sticky. So you'll have to press these, but I'm pressing it down a little bit so it's like a disc. And then I'm gonna put it on my pan to cool.
Hi.
Hi. So this is just this and repeat. Take your chunk, roll it in a ball. I'm gonna try it in the coconut now. I'm putting it in the coconut. I'm pushing.
Sharon?
Yes.
I'm sorry, quick question Elias has.
Yes.
Is the chocolate in the pan first or the coconut and almonds in the
Dad?
chocolate?
I would not put that in the pan because the chocolate will melt. It'll be hot in there. The reason we put the nuts in is they're a little bit of a, the consistency, it won't melt. The coconut might be okay, but it might change it a little bit. The key really is doing it afterwards for the topping, but the nuts can be inside. Oh, but you know what you could do actually, come to think of it? When it's in this pan, you could press some chocolate chips down in there. And then I would wet your hands a little bit, just a little tiny bit, so that it will hold onto the, at this point, it's probably hardened up a little bit. So you've got your disc, and you can add the chocolate chips if you want it in here, or you can add them on the outside. You'll still get that crunch. Where was I? Okay, so I'm grabbing my pieces. I'm rolling.
Ah, there we go. I can hear you.
Oh, good. All right.
All right, I think the Wi-Fi was just struggling is what the problem was. Not your guys', it was mine. Sorry to interrupt, but I was trying to ask you something, which is when I put the chocolate in, are almonds in the chocolate before rolling them in the pan, or putting them in the pan and rolling them?
Yes. So I now understand your question. You can put it in this pan. I would not put it in the pot. I think I confused myself with that.
So I put them in chocolate pan and the coconut and almonds in before I go roll it?
No, what you do is you put the almonds in the pot, some of the almonds, half of the almonds.
After,
when you're stirring in the pot, you put the half of the almonds in.
The chocolate?
Then the cocoa powder.
Yes, but my question is, after the cocoa powder, do I put the almonds in the
Yes, you put half of the almonds in the pot after you put the cocoa powder.
Okay.
Then you transfer that mixture into your dish.
And flatten it?
I'm sorry?
And then I flatten it?
And then you take it out and you roll it. And what I was saying was that you can leave some with no topping. You could leave it naked and leave it with no topping if you wanted one that's more plain. And after you roll it in the ball, you just flatten it a little bit so it's more of a disc.
Okay.
But if you wanted to roll it in chocolate chips or something else, you could always do that as well. And then
in coconut?
you could do it in coconut, yes, or you could also do it in the nuts. Whatever topping you have, you're just going to push it in there. And if you need a little extra sticking power, you can just dampen your hands ever so slightly and it will hold the topping on there. So these are going to cool on your pan. They're still probably slightly warm now. Another thing to mention is that when you're putting them in the topping, you can also kind of push the sides down so you get some good coverage around the sides. And then once you finish that, you can let them cool. You could even go as far as to put them in the refrigerator if you really wanted them to kind of harden up a bit. And then once you do that, and once they're all cool, I'm going to show you a very cool trick of how you can not only keep them in your house, but if you wanted to make these as a gift for somebody, I'm going to show you a really fun way, which is what I like to do when I bake for other people, because I bake for other people a lot. And when I bake for other people, oftentimes I'm running out of ways to deliver something that looks pretty. I like things to look pretty. I think people get excited when you give them something and it looks nice. So the way that I like to do it, I'm gonna take this away now and just show you so we can stay on time and if we also have any questions. As I mentioned at the beginning, I save my jars from things I buy at the store. It's also a great way to reuse and reduce waste and do recycling. So reduce, reuse, recycle. And so this, I just soaked off the label and I'm going to very carefully put my Laddoos, and now this jar is a little big. I made my Laddoos smaller, but you can pop them in. It's like a candy jar. And you can put the top on. Now I keep, whenever I get a little bit of a present or some ribbon, I just take a little baggie I have. I keep this in my junk drawer. Everyone probably has a junk drawer in their kitchen or your office somewhere. And I keep the string or the ribbon I get. Sometimes if I get ribbon, I roll it up and I put a rubber band around it. It's usually just enough that when I want to give a gift, it's the perfect amount. Sometimes I cut it. So I'm taking this, I'm gonna wrap it around the top of my jar, tie it. And now when I give my Laddoos as a gift, they look pretty. You could even go so far as to write a little note and add it on there. And then you have a really thoughtful gift for somebody that's made with love. And so this is a great way to not only bake something fun and easy that tastes delicious, but also give it as a gift. So that is how we make chocolate Laddoos. Thank you for the thumbs up. I saw that, Heather and Eileen. Does anybody have any questions? I know that there's a lot happening in the chat, but if you have questions, I'd love to hear them.
Ooh, what's that Caitlin is holding up? Is that yours? Is that what you made? That looks fantastic.
Oh my gosh. Did you put pretzels?
Yes. Oh my
Oh,
God.
I love it.
All right, everybody show us. If you have something to show us what we have. I'm going to take a picture of it. So show us in the camera what you got. Oh my God, Corey, I want to eat that. Oh my God.
Oh, that's so pretty, Corey. I love the circles.
Anything to show? I'm going to take a picture. Let me see them. Hold them up. Hold them up. 1, 2. Perfect. Thanks, guys. That's awesome.
I'm so excited. Now, I need you guys to stay with us for a second because I think Jillian is going to be sharing, you know, we're always trying to make sure that we really stay in touch with how we're doing and how we can do better. And we just want to make sure that we're hearing what you have to say. So she's going to launch a short poll. And while she's sharing the poll, I'm going to tell you about some of our activities.
Yep, the poll's up. So please complete it for us.
It was great.
Good. Be honest. We want your honest feedback. And by the way, you can also give us feedback on our website, or you can send us an email anytime to say, Sharon is the best baker in the world, or guess what? I want to learn how to make meatloaf, whatever. Right now it's baking, but we could move into cooking other things later. So please give us your honest feedback. It's really helpful for us. Okay, guys?
Totally. And while we're doing that last bit, let me just give you a quick rundown of what's coming up. So today is Thursday, so we always have our culture series and Bake with Sharon. Tomorrow we have our space for belonging. That's just a really great way for you to connect with other people. It's a safe space for you to talk about how you're feeling and just be connected. We've also got in the afternoon, we've got our wellness and mindfulness and yoga with Daniel, which I've done it with him. It's amazing. You should all try it if you haven't yet. And Monday, we have something special. It's not going to be every week, but it's with Jenny Stepanek. Her nickname is Mama Peace, and she's going to tell you all how she became Mama Peace. She's going to tell us a lot more about how important it is to be peaceful in this world that we're living in right now, which sometimes doesn't always feel that way. We've got Tuesdays, Move with Kim, and then the Entrepreneur Project, which if you haven't checked that out, please do both of them. I'm dying to try the Move with Kim. I hear it's an amazing workout. And the
I'll just tell you that I cannot move today because I moved with Kim on Tuesday. And there are parts of me that are quite sore.
I can't, standing up and sitting down, very difficult.
Very difficult. I hear you. My tush is like on fire. So if you want a tush on fire, right, Heather?
Yes.
Yes.
I love it.
For
Oh,
everyone.
and one more thing to mention. On July 10th, we have our beer tasting with True Respite. It's going to be super, super fun. So if you haven't got tickets to that yet, go ahead and sign up. It's going to be really fun. I gave it as a gift for Father's Day for my husband and my father-in-law. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So that is what's coming up in the next week.
And real quickly, Sharon, can you just hold up? Will you hold up your goodies for me real fast?
Yeah.
I get to see it. Thank you. Awesome. Thanks so much.
All right, sorry.
You guys
All right.
enjoy your Laddoos. I can't wait to try them. I'll make mine later.
Excuse me.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Sharon?
Yeah. Yes.
Question. On some of these, I'm just trying to dip them in. My only question is, like, after I dip them, the thing is, do I put them in like a container or something? Because then.
So I would let them cool on that tray with the parchment paper that we put out. And then once they're really cool, then you can put them into an airtight container. And I would say I would keep them in the fridge. I think they're going to last longer and they taste yummy cold.
So how long should they be in the fridge for, or it doesn't matter?
It's just for how, so you can, I think that they're good for about up to a week. So if you keep them in the fridge, that'll just preserve it longer.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I hope you guys enjoy them.
You guys enjoy.
Hey,
Thank you
Julian.
so much, Sharon, and thank you everybody
Thank
for
you.
joining. Big virtual hugs.
Hey, Julian.
Bye, guys. Bye,
Thank
Jeff.
you.
Bye.
Hi. How you doing?
Bye. Say bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Thank you so much.
Yep.